Welcome in those who are tuned in early for the practice session. Let me go ahead and check my microphone really quick. Alright, everything seems to be working. So here we are, Bathurst, Mount Panorama. Very, very technical circuit in the Australian hillside. We've got essentially 23 turns here. Some drivers very experienced at this track tonight, some drivers not much experience at all, and this is one of those tracks where experience and practice will be what wins you the race or makes it to the end. Home of the Bathurst 12-hour, one of the biggest endurance races, endurance GT races of the Intercontinental GT Challenge, one of the biggest GT races of the year once it happens every year. Factory drivers from all sorts of different series come together to race here in Australia. Some names that you may know: Mauro Engel, Jules Goulinon, Matt Campbell, Kelvin van der Linde, Laurens Vanthoor, Dries Vanthoor. Very many very popular names have come here at one point and usually make it a stop on their calendar throughout the year. Will allot the time to drive for these different teams. Usually they will be racing for their factory team and will join their factory effort, such as your Dries Vanthoor, Laurens Vanthoor with Audi, Kelvin van der Linde with I want to say BMW, but I'm not sure if BMW raced here this past year. And then your Matt Campbell with the Manti EMA. They don't run the Grello liveries here at Bathurst, but they do run the their shell liveries. And then the Mercedes efforts of Grip M Racing and I want to say Windward Racing, and who else? There's another one. Anyway, not really the biggest issue. That's not what we're worried about tonight. We are worried about doing an hour here at Bathurst, a full hour at night. I believe the race start time on track will be 9 p.m., so it will be well into the night by the time we get there. Not the usual sort of racing that you would see at this track. Usually they would start at the early morning hours around 5, 6 a.m. and race into the daylight. Here we will stay dark the whole time. Headlights are going to be extremely crucial. Something that you will probably see at some point will be some flickering of the lights as cars get front end damage. It causes a disconnection with those headlights and can cause some flickering, under braking, indicating an electrical issue. Another thing is going to be hard impacts to the wall. If you take out your lights, you will have to come to the pits to repair them. You would probably come to the pits to repair that car regardless after a hard contact with the wall. But there is much less getting around it. Contact here is going to be a big issue. Yellow flag zones. Just getting around the track in one piece is going to be the biggest piece of the winning puzzle tonight. It will be very, very, very important to be aware of what's ahead of you on track. Be aware of where the other cars are, where those yellow flag zones are, as those yellow flag zones are not to be ignored at most tracks. You can generally just go around the cars that have been involved in an incident somewhere on track, but here the cars take up about half the track, if not more than half the track in some spots, and a car sideways in front of a car trying to go flat out all the way through that section of track will pretty much guarantee contact. Lap times here are going to be around the low 2-minute mark. Looking for lap times as low as 2:01, potentially 2 minute. That would be at perfect conditions. We are on green track, so right now times will be a little bit slower than we would be looking at in qualifying. Do not have all of the rubber put down yet. There will be a large disparity between lap times, just like the real races. There are the drivers that know this place like the back of their hand, and there are the drivers that it may be their first time here. And I know for a fact for a lot of the drivers here tonight, it will be their first time here. As Busch, hard contact with the wall coming out of the cutting. That is something that you will see a lot. The cutting is an extremely tight section of track. And if I can find somebody, if we can hop onto car number 25, a Kruger. Name that I believe we have not seen in quite a while. But coming out of the first corner, Hell Corner, up onto the mountain straight, very long uphill straight, you will see a lot of slipstream work headed up the hill here before we get to the hard right-hander of Griffin's Bend. It's a wider portion of track, but that does not mean that two cars belong there. There is not much room on the outside. The further we get into this race, the more marbles are going to be on the outside. There will be no grip out there. And then as we head up the hill into the cutting, the sharp left-hander teetering around first, second gear, and then flat out for a couple corners between Quarry Corner, Reed Park, and Frog Hollow. And then as we head down the hill towards Solomon Park and to McPhillamy, coming through Solomon now, down the hill into McPhillamy with the big sand trap on the right-hand side and a very steep curve as we come into Skyline. And then down the very steep downhill chicane into the S's before you get dumped down into the Dipper here. And then we are heading towards Forest Elbow, a very tight downhill hairpin that has a little bit of camber on the inside, but it's going to push you to the outside as you see Kruger nearly making contact with the wall, and then a car just behind him, Mercedes, making contact with the wall. Something you will see a lot. As we head down the Conrad Straight, it is full speed. You will be reaching pretty much the highest speeds that these cars are capable of as you are downhill flat out through the kink into the chase. Hard braking zone very early on the brakes to get the car slowed down. A tall curb on the inside of the penultimate corner there before you come down into Murray's Corner, and then you will finish the lap there. A very tricky corner. You can have a very good lap and then lose a lot of time with that final corner if you just take it a little bit wrong. If you carry too much speed into it, not carry enough speed into it, it is very easy to lose all of the time that you have gained in that final corner and the chase as well. One bad bump of the curb on the inside of the chase and you will be unsettling the car very, very much. It has been known to spin a car around. It's also going to be one of the biggest spots that we will be looking at for overtakes, the Mountain Straight and the Conrad Straight. You will see cars going side by side down into the chase. Probably quite a lot tonight, because once you get onto the mountain section here, once you come through the cutting and then through Reed Park, Frog Hollow, Solomon, McPhillamy. All of these different turns, there's enough room for 2 cars, but 2 cars cannot do it in terms of grip. There is only one line as Kruger goes deep into Skyline, down into the S's, hard contact, and this is going to be the incident that we are going to be looking out for in the race. Once a car goes deep into Skyline, loses the car, where Kruger ended up there, it would have been okay as long as he stayed on the brakes, which he did. Ended up returning to garage, but as long as he stays on the brakes, there is room on the inside for the cars to go by. If he was down into the S's and down into the dipper when he spun, then we would be seeing a much different picture. There is not much room there, barely 2 cars width, and if you have 1 car sideways perpendicular to the track blocking half the track or more than it, it is going to be very hard, and it's going to be crucial for drivers to pay attention to those yellow flag zones, both for their safety and the safety of the driver that is on track, the safety of the equipment. As a hard contact here in just a 1-hour race with 1 scheduled pit stop, it is extremely crucial to bring the car home in one piece. There will be damage, without a doubt, in the race tonight, as Elizondo, your current leader here in practice, with Saba in the Lamborghini, a driver that we have seen on the front row in this Sunday series many times, yielding to the GT2s of Busch and Elizondo, as Saba will tuck in behind. Very tight, and with traffic, there is not much room to get around traffic. Alarcon yielding, but his yielding has put Elizondo onto a bad line, and Elizondo making contact with the wall. The traffic here is going to need to hold their line. The leading cars, the faster cars, will find their way around, but they know themselves that you can't make those passes in these different parts of the track, and that car that was yielding to Elizondo ultimately put Elizondo on a suboptimal racing line as they come down through the S's and into the dipper. There's a little bit of traffic ahead, but these 2 drivers, both the front row in class currently, Darnell and the GT3 splitting their times with a 2:03.5 as they head down the Conrad Straight. As Caligari yielded to Elizondo, did not yield the Busch. Maybe didn't think that he was coming in so hot behind. And they come through the chase. Busch a little bit deep. I don't know if he held onto it. I don't think he did. Yellow flag comes out for him, and Busch has gone around. A little over 15 minutes left in this practice session before we get started with our qualifiers. If you have tuned in with us before, you have seen that we typically do a split qualifier in the Wednesday series. This GT3 GT2 multi-class series, we do not do the split qualifier in this series. It is going to be a single 15-minute qualifier, and traffic is going to play a crucial role here, as drivers are going to have not very much time to set their lap. You are pretty much going to go and try and get the best or first opportunity that you can to get your lap in, because once that track gets saturated with traffic, it is going to be very hard to get a clean lap, very hard to find cooperating traffic to allow you to get your laps done, get the lap that you are wanting done. Just about 15 minutes left in this practice session before we get started here. Again, a 15-minute qualifying session. Without a split, it is going to be all drivers on track at once. And it will be up to the drivers to allow the others to get their laps in and yield to those drivers who were on faster laps behind. As Elizondo with a practice pit stop. Another thing for these drivers tonight is to practice those pit stops. A newcomer tonight in the Aston Martin of Good Gazelle. Good Gazelle, thank you for racing with us tonight. As they head on up the hill, up the mountain straight. Douglas, I believe, also a newcomer in this series. Elizondo around at Solman Park just before Skyline. And it is going to be those mistakes that will make or break the race tonight. Hopping on with Harvey in the Audi R8 GT2 will be extremely crucial to keep your car in one piece. You can afford a little bit of damage and everyone will probably get a touch of damage, but minimizing damage, minimizing time loss, keeping that car as drivable as possible will be crucial. Another part to consider is going to be your pit stop. Yes, you have the opportunity to repair damage in the pit stop, but how much time is that damage going to cost you? A little bit of maybe some steering damage, some suspension damage, or some body damage could add 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds to your pit stop. And that around here is a quarter of a lap, which could make or break. Pit stops are already expected to be around 30 seconds. But some drivers, you may see, they have an option on their pit strategy on the MFD to select or deselect their damage repair, both bodywork and the suspension. As Harvey, a little bit of contact with the wall at Griffin's Bend, but clean through the cutting. They come up through Reed Park and Frog Hollow. A touch of the brakes, a downshift there as you saw the flames come out of the car. A safer line through Frog Hollow. And all over the inside curb into the sand. Will keep the car in one piece. Not as good for the tires as you would hope, but would keep the car in one piece, would allow you to rejoin. Tire wear going to be another factor in this race tonight, as we are hopping on with Slokey in the Ferrari 296. Car number 212 of Poplinski off at the cutting. And you will see yellow flags waving for the drivers in this sector. And those drivers in this sector, coming into this sector, will have on their race logic box a yellow flag indicator that will tell the drivers where the yellow flag, or whether or not there is a yellow flag, if they are in green flag conditions, yellow flag conditions, white flag conditions, checkered flag conditions, or if they have a blue flag from a faster car coming behind. Those faster cars coming behind can both be class split cars or lap cars or both. As we have the 4 of, I want to say, that is Good Gazelle ahead in that Aston Martin. Harvey this time still getting on the curb. And we'll see if he is on the curb as they come through Solman Park. Not on the curb, but also not attacking the lap as hard, and then down through Skyline into the S's before we get to the Dipper. As you can see, the cars snaking their way through the S's and the Dipper before we get to Forest Elbow. And now Good Gazelle Harvey showing us how that outside wall at the exit of Forest Elbow will play a part. You will not get too much damage on the car from tagging that at least 1 or 2 times, but the more you tag that wall, the higher chance of having not necessarily a catastrophic damage to the car, but a handling altering damage. Maybe knocking one of the tie rods, bending a tie rod, bending a control arm. Something that would cause a little bit of a change in the steering, not race ending, but race altering damage. As a big splash of sparks from Good Gazelle in that Aston Martin. Expect to see some flashing lights from Harvey here very shortly as he is carrying more speed through Hell Corner as they head up the mountain straight. Harvey pulling to the inside of Good Gazelle and pulling off the track, it looks like. I don't know if maybe he had a bad lap or what, but Harvey pulling off the track and heading back to the pits. Hopping on with Rowan in the Mercedes-AMG GT2. One of the fan favorite drivers. Darnell and Salty Breakfast, also fan favorite drivers. Rowan down Skyline, making contact with the inside wall, and that will completely unsettle the car. And Rowan hard into that perpendicular wall at the bottom of the Skyline chicane. Also, if anyone is tuning into the YouTube chat, hello YouTube chat. And we will hop on with another driver, Merkel, having now entered the session. Hop on with Darnell in the Nissan GTR. This is the track where the Nissan Skyline GTR got its name Godzilla when it came down from the Japanese Grand Touring Car Championship and decided to run in, I believe it was still the Bathurst 12 Hour at the time. And it put the Audis and Porsches. And what else was racing at that time? But back in the days of Group A, it definitely shut everyone else up in the class as what was known as the Godzilla R32 Group A Skyline came to Bathurst and swept. And I believe it did it for multiple years. we have not seen the Nissan Skyline, or the Nismo GT3R, as Nissan calls it. We have not seen it very much in recent times on track. I believe the model that we have in ACC is the 2018 model, which would be one of the last years that the car was raced. Same with the Bentley. Bentley here at Bathurst was one of the top contenders when they raced here. The car was large and boaty, but it was definitely very good handling car around here, and it won it, I believe, on multiple occasions. I think the last time that Bentley won it, and the last time that Bentley raced, was in 2019, which would have been a good way to close out the program. Less than 5 minutes left in this practice session before we get started with our qualifying. Checking out the lap times. And car number 7 and 8, Saba and Mikey, with identical lap times. Just a couple laps left in this practice session before we will be started with our 15-minute qualifying session. So, at least for qualifying, we will be in the day. The track has rubbered in slightly. We have changed from green conditions to fast conditions on track, but it has not changed the time of day. It has not changed the track temperature. As Darnell loses it at the chase at the penultimate corner. And he turns on his hazard lights and allows traffic to pass as he goes ahead and says this is a good time to practice a pit stop. Let's get that done, and Darnell will practice his pit, pull into his pit box, or stop in pit lane and then return to his pit box. Practicing the pit entry here, as the pit entry at Mount Panorama is a very tricky pit entry. It is a chicane that you come down the hill very high speed into before you are hard on the brakes to make that chicane. Pull off to the left-hand side hard on the brakes and then cut through the chicane. Don't cut through it, but you want to go through it as fast as you can. And then once you come through the chicane, hard on the brakes for the pit speed limiter before you carry on from there. Hopping on with Bush, Elizondo showing us a little bit of an error with his headlights. Probably something that we will see a little bit tonight. They do have the lights on, but it is just the way that it shows up on here. The lights just do not show. Someone is hard into the wall. I'm not sure if I believe that was Elizondo. Elizondo returning to the pits. And Bush coming through the chase for his final lap of the night. Then down through Murray's corner to come across the start-finish line one more time. as the field cycles through for their final laps of this practice session. Down Skyline into the S's for Busch one last time. Currently sitting 0.8 of a second behind Elizondo. Both drivers the top 2 in their respective class. In the GT2 class. Cook with a little bit of damage on that Lamborghini as he came out of Forest Elbow. Car number 19 around at Skyline. That was Merkel in the Porsche returning back to the pits. Busch in the 33 with Cook just ahead. Busch on a flying lap here, giving Cook the flashing light saying, hey, I'm on a flying lap. It is time for you to get out of the way. You are not on a valid lap. I would like to set this lap at race speed. And as Cook pulls into the pit lane to get a practice pit stop in, Busch will bring this session to a close for him and improves 0.7, not enough to eclipse Elizondo and lead the practice session, but enough to close that gap up quite a bit. Sava, our final driver on a valid lap, coming through the chase, but sliding the car will go around and will invalidate the lap, and that should bring an end to our practice session before we get started with qualifying. And here we are in qualifying. Who will be our first taker? Elizondo and Alarcon both fighting very hard for that track position. Elizondo nearly spinning the car, but Alarcon will be our first out in clean air. It will take them about 2 minutes to get around before they can start their flying lap, and how much traffic will be out at that point. The order as they come out is Alarcon, Elizondo, car number 79 of Caligari, car number 420 of Darnell, and then car number 42 of Slokey. Some cloud cover here, so the track is not going to be quite as warm as the drivers would like it to be. But Alarcon now having been passed by Elizondo. Elizondo will be our first to set a lap in this qualifying session, so long as he can keep it clean until then. Once again, thank you for joining in if you were on the YouTube side. I will try my best to keep in touch with the YouTube chat. As Elizondo comes out of Forest Elbow, down the Conrad straight, full out, using all of that horsepower that they have the advantage of over GT3s. GT2s, I have said the difference between GT2s and GT3s many times, but GT2s, no tire blankets. They come off the line, come out of the pits on cold, ice-cold tires. They have a little bit less aerodynamic technology than GT3s, but they have more horsepower. Some tracks put them at close lap times. As of right now, what we are seeing is that the GT2s are the cars to beat at this course. They are the ones setting the faster lap times, as shown by Busch and Elizondo. And Elizondo, first on track with a valid lap. We will see if he can bring it home. There is some traffic in front of him. Not only does he need that traffic to get a move on, he needs them to keep it straight. The last thing he needs is a yellow zone. Have to check up, have to slow that car down as it comes through Griffin's Bend, up the hill towards the cutting. Hang it wide, then tight to the inside, using all of that curb, getting as close to the inside wall as you can as they come through Quarry Bend and then Reed Park. Very tight, flat out all the way through Quarry Bend into Reed Park, and then a touch of the brakes, floating off the gas and the brake, just trying to get the rotation that you want as you come through Frog Hollow. and then into McPhillamy before they come down the hill from Skyline into the S's. Elizondo's closing the gap on the traffic ahead. As long as they can keep their race in check, keep their race line valid, keep it straight on the track, Elizondo should be okay. Coming down into Forest Elbow, it is Busch and Harvey, the two cars in front of him, so he should have no issues with them holding their pace. They are going to be his top competitors tonight. But as Elizondo chases the pair of the GT2s down the Conrod straight, not close enough for any slipstream help, but Busch and Harvey, as Harvey concedes the kink into the chase to Busch. Elizondo now coming down into the chase, hard braking before the 90-degree left-hander, missing the inside curb as it is a very steep curb you do not want to touch. And then coming down into Murray's corner, what will Elizondo be? What will his lap time be? What will the pace be? As Elizondo sets the pace and they come across the line, a 2:02.8, very similar to the lap time that he ran in the previous session. We are currently on a green track. As this track rubbers in, there's not too much time for it to rubber in, but the track will speed up as we get more rubber on track. Alarcon setting the pace in the GT3s before he is passed by Darnell. Darnell, currently your GT3 pole sitter. Elizondo showing good pace in the practice session, holding on to the GT2 pole for the entire, at the end of the practice session in GT2s. Mikey up into P2. The next car to set up a flying lap. Wagner up into P2 in GT2. A third of the way through this session, 10 minutes left of this 15-minute session. And traffic seems to be sharing the track nicely. Car number 4 of Good Gazelle following right behind the 296 of Wayne. And Good Gazelle trying maybe to go side by side with Wayne. Not something you would want to do in qualifying, as Good Gazelle backs out and allows Wayne to have the lap. That will hinder Good Gazelle's lap time, as he is not going to be on optimum pace and optimum line. A lot of GT3s setting their laps here as Darnell has come back out on track, getting fresh tires. Saba up into the GT3 pole in the Lamborghini. A second behind the GT2 of Elizondo, but half a second ahead of the GT3 of Darnell. And as we are awaiting times from the rest of the field, we have 26 cars on track, 16 qualified, waiting on 10 more valid times. Some drivers, with the traffic that we're dealing with, we may not see a valid time. Busch puts his GT2 Maserati on the front row alongside the GT2 Maserati of Elizondo. Nearly the same gap that he had, that he eclipsed, or that he closed at the end of the previous practice session. He found 7/10 in that car. Elizondo very close to his previous lap time. Busch found that time on his last lap in the practice session, and as the track has now gone from green to fast, we've got more rubber down on track. The lap times will start to fall, but the drivers have to keep it valid, keep it on track, and have luck on their side to keep the traffic valid in front of them. Does Busch have the pace to close this gap as they come through Reed Park? Harvey in tow down Frog Hollow before they come into McPhillamy. The downhill hard left-hander. It doesn't look like it's too hard of a corner, but it is one of the trickiest corners on the circuit. Busch deep into Skyline, throwing him off the line slightly. Will he still have the speed as they come through the dipper and then head into Forest Elbow? Busch missing the apex of Forest Elbow, coming out a little bit wider, but not coming anywhere near the wall there. Still on a valid lap as Busch is looking to eclipse Elizondo for the GT2 pole. We are now halfway through this qualifying session. Only a 15-minute qualifying session and 2 minutes a lap. That gives you, at most, 13 laps to attempt Or not 13 laps, it gets you 6 laps pretty much. I'd say 7 at the most, but you would have to hit the times just right, be the first out the gate to get 7 laps. 6 is the more optimal, and that is not counting for any laps that you may take as you go for maybe more tires or a change of strategies, as Elizondo has taken 7/10 out of his time. Busch met the previous time, but Elizondo dropped his time even further. We will not be getting optimal conditions in this race or in this qualifying session, but the track will continue to improve as the sun has now come out. That track is warming up, and as the session comes to a close, we should be seeing the fastest lap times of the session as we get that wall camera through Reed Park, one of the more iconic cameras of the track. Much like the chicanes at Monaco, where those Formula One cars, famously Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, all bring their tires very, very close to those metal corrugated barriers on the inside. As they come through Reed Park here, it is similar sidings, as they are flat out inches off of the wall. You would not be surprised to see some drivers maybe scrape that wall, not enough to hinder the lap time, or get close enough to it that it looks like they've hit it. Elizondo in the pits. I don't believe that he is going to be done yet, but that is going to take away from the amount of laps that he has left. If he came out of the pits now, he would have 2 more laps left. 1 lap to get around, and then 2 laps to qualify. As Busch comes through the final corner, he is still on the pace, getting a lot of the curb and a little bit of twitch of the rear, but he takes 3/10 out of the time. Not enough to beat Elizondo yet, as Busch will pull over. Is Busch making a change to the car? Elizondo back out on track. The battle for the GT3 pole has also heated up, as Slokey has passed Saba by 1/10 of a second. Just over 1/10 of a second, 1.12 between Slokey and Saba. And Darnell exactly 0.2 of a second behind Slokey. The top 3 in GT3 very close, or you could say, actually no, still the top 3. The other cars I'm looking at are GT2s. The battle for the GT2 pole is still on. Busch has enough time to get out and get 1 more flying lap in. Will he do it? He doesn't usually leave the pit this late in the qualifying sessions. Usually once he parks it, that's it for him. Elizondo looking to improve on his pole time. Will have 1 more lap to do so, as the clock will come down to 0 before he makes it back. Busch, pulling out of the pit, will have this lap and 1 more. This lap will be the out lap, and then he will have 1 more final lap. He is going to need all the help he gets. He has some clean track, but Alarcon and the McLaren has pulled in front of him. Alarcon being a slower car. Would not be surprised to see Busch make quick work of Alarcon, probably giving him some lights very early, and will be exercising that higher top speed as Alarcon pulls to the inside, allows Busch to get that track position. Saba now ahead of Slokey, as Drain has split the GT3s in their lap times, about 1 second off of the pace of Busch and Elizondo. As Drain loses it at McPhillamy. Keeping on with the lap though. Where is Busch? That will not hinder Busch's lap yet. Busch just needs to make sure that he brings this car to the line in time. Cannot afford a mistake, cannot afford traffic, cannot afford an incident with traffic ahead. Saba just behind, coming out of the cutting, and then to Reed Park. Very tight to the inside. Maybe looked like a reactionary move to try and keep that car off the wall rather than running a confident racing line, as Elizondo much smoother through there that time than Saba previously. The battle for the GT2 pole is heating up here as they will have one more lap to set their flying laps here. As Busch comes down the Conrad straight into the chase. Will Busch have the time? This lap is invalid. Nothing counts on this lap. He's got a minute and a half left. It's a 2-minute lap. This will be his final lap. Going wide at the exit of the penultimate corner. Pulling into the pit lane. He doesn't like it. He does not think that he has the time. And Busch will concede the pole position to Elizondo. As Elizondo will come to the line, he's either going to pull into the pit lane as he has now secured the pole pretty much. And as Elizondo comes down to Murray's corner, getting a launch out of Murray's corner and coming down the pit straight towards Hell corner. Busch parked it in the pits. He is done. Saba, he is done. Drain, he is done. Slokey, also done. Darnell out on a lap to try and improve. Coming down the Conrad straight. May have enough time to get another lap in, but I don't think so. If he does, it would be extremely tight. I don't think he's got enough time. 15 seconds. Darnell will be the first car to finish his qualifying session by coming across the line. 5 seconds at Murray's corner, but it will not be enough. The clock has come down to 0. The qualifying session is over. Does Darnell improve, though? Darnell does not improve. He eclipses Drain in terms of track position, will be on the second row for now, but not enough to improve in class. Mott coming down into Murray's corner, also looking to improve. Currently P11 overall. And as they come out of Murray's corner, moving up into P9 overall, car number 4 of Gut Gazelle, looking to improve their lap time coming out of Murray's corner. A little bit of the exit curb goes up into 21st overall, car number 47 of Miller in the Porsche 935, car number 69. Nice. Personal favorite car of mine, the 935. Most people don't like it, but their opinions are wrong. As Miller comes into Murray's corner, Miller will be the final car on track as he sets his final lap time. Miller in 23rd. The order as they finish here in the qualifying session in GT2 and overall, your pole sitter Elizondo in P1, Busch in P2, Drain P3, Harvey P4, Wagner P5, Mikey P6, Kruger P7, Rowan P8, Bird P9, Poplinski P10, Miller P11, Harrell P12 in GT3. Thank you, game. Let me get back to it. In GT3, Saba P1, Darnell P2, Slokey P3, Mott P4, Douglas P5, Flatman P6, Craters P7, Alarcon P8, Norman P9, Ditto P10, Cook P11, Good Gazelle P12, Wayne P13, Caligari P14, and Merkel P15. And a wrench in the works in terms of strategy. Rain for the first 10 minutes of the race. It looks like it's going to be slacking off as the race gets started, but with no sunlight, it is going to dry very slowly. It's going to take some time to build that. It's going to take some time to build that dry line. But a wrench in the works. We now have rain. Rain was not predicted, but rain is there. And that seems to be part of it. 5 minutes, the timer between the qualifying and race start, as the drivers are now probably clamoring to get their wet tires on and throwing together a wet strategy. As in the pits, you will need to make sure that you do not put dry tires on. Drivers, if you are listening right now, make sure that in your pit strategy, you have it selected to change to wet tires. if you're listening, it's probably a good idea to change your pit strategy to change to wet tires if the track is going to stay wet. If the track is not, then you're going to want to go back to dries. But this is going to play very crucial into race strategy, as the track is wet and it will be raining. Will the rain go away? Will we get more rain later on in the session? I am not sure. We are already expecting some chaos in this race, and the chaos is only going to increase as we have added another variable into this very technical configuration that we have here. And I believe some of the drivers have been caught off guard by the sudden weather change. As we are less than 2 minutes away from rolling to get this formation lap going. And those drivers going to make sure that they have their strategy correct. Some drivers saying that they cannot get started on wets. And a very odd turn of events to have a weather variable thrown in. Well, if you're stuck on the grid in dry tires, then you may have to take the gamble and hope to run them before or as the dry line settles in. With this many cars, the dry line should come quickly. But either that or you can return to garage and start from the pits, one of those two. But it is going to be very, very different than a lot of these drivers were expecting. We are not going to see lap times anywhere near the lap times that we are seeing in the low 2-minute mark, especially in the wet. And as we come into 30 seconds to go, we will be engines fired here very shortly.
30 seconds.
And as we get on board with our leader of Elizondo, and we can see it is definitely raining there, as those wipers are putting in work, as the track is slick but not flooded yet, and it is very typical to see rain here in this race in the Bathurst 12 hour. I was not expecting it in this race tonight, but this is going to very much change the strategy of the race, as if drivers are on wets now, they are going to have to get those wets changed over to slicks once this track dries up. If someone in chat could tell me, is anyone on wets or is everyone on slicks right now? Another thing with these GT2s, they are going to be very much struggling for tire temperature, as they are going to have their brake ducts and everything set for dry setups, dry conditions, as you're going to have different brake duct settings to keep tire temperature, stop air from getting into those brake ducts and cooling the tires and the brakes as much, as the brakes are also going to help generate a little bit of temperature with the tires. As of right now, it looks Elizondo able to get some power down, so I would say that he is probably either very heavily relying on traction control, or he is on wet tires. if you are on slicks right now, it is going to be very, very difficult for the beginning of this race. As Elizondo leads the field, as we see the town of Bathurst just behind the lights of Bathurst. Very, very interesting in this race tonight. And at the start of the race, there will be no dry line, no groove, as these drivers start cutting that water away. It will continue raining into the start of this race, as Elizondo is bunching the field up before they head down to Skyline. And down into the S's. And as the field comes through, as we see all of the lights snaking down through the S's and the dipper behind, and then we come through Forest Elbow. There is a little bit of spray being generated right now, and those GT2s are going to be struggling to generate tire temperature, as once again, they do not have tire blankets. They do not get warm tires when they come off the line for these formation laps, or when they come out of the pits. It is going to take a little bit for these GT2s to generate tire temperature. It's going to take even longer when the track is wet, as that is just going to cool those tires. Something that you will see is they're going to be dragging the brakes quite a bit, getting temperature in those brakes. They are going to get more and more warmth out of those brakes, try to transfer that warmth to the tires. As the field bunches up behind, we get the 2x2 call very shortly. Should get it as we come into the chase, as Elizondo pulls over to the left-hand side to assume the inside, and Busch to his outside. Busch going wide, many drivers going wide at the chase, as there is much less grip there than there was in the qualifying session. I don't know if Busch may be too far ahead, if he may get a penalty for starting infringement, as once the start gets locked in, the field is frozen, as Busch backs up behind Elizondo to give Elizondo the lead. And as they come to the line, we are about to take the green flag here in a surprisingly wet and rainy Bathurst 1 hour here.
Green light.
And
go,
green,
go.
green, green. We are now racing as they all shuffle for position as they head down to Hell Corner. Everyone seems to have made it through okay, joining back with the leaders as they head up the hill. Elizondo still in the lead. They are 3 wide behind, it looked like, as the leaders come down the mountain straight up into Griffin's Bend. Hard braking zone at speed for the first time, and I see wets on a few of these cars out here. Very quickly we will find out who is not on wets, as we have some cars coming out of the pit lane. Car number 9 of Ditto around at Griffin's Bend, falling to the back of the pack. Hopefully no damage on that car. Elizondo leading Busch and Darnell through Reed Park and now into Philemy, into Philemy now as they come through Reed Park, before they head down the hill for the first time. The hard braking zone, you do not want to be braking very hard down the hill, as you want to get your braking done before you get to the drop. And as they come down through the S's, Darnell very much giving chase to these GT2s early on in this race. And as they come out of Forest Elbow for the first time, the rest of the field seems to be making it through the S's and the dipper. Okay, there has been a big split. Car number 47 of Miller backwards at the bottom of Skyline, returning that car back to the garage. And there has been a split starting with car number 12. I don't necessarily see any damage, but I do see some damage on the cars behind, as there must have been an incident there. It may have been in avoidance of that car number 47 of Miller. But that is one thing that is going to be crucial in this race, or actually may help the drivers that took the pit lane start, is they get to avoid the majority of these incidents. Car number 999 of Taxi Dad deep at the chase. Funny enough, a Bentley in the Bathurst 12-hour did that exact same move a couple years ago, as Flatman may be on slicks or have some severe damage to that car, as he is now pulling into the pits. Poplinski around at the chase, also may be coming into the pits here shortly. Elizondo, your leader with Bush, giving close chase. Darnell leading in GT3. Saba following behind the next car in GT3. Darnell just in the background, as we will get on board with Good Gazelle as they are coming up the mountain straight. Robert Mifflin, if you are in the chat, let me know if I am pronouncing Good Gazelle right. If not, I will correct myself. As Good Gazelle in the Aston Martin chasing the fellow Aston Martin of Ditto, who was around earlier on the first lap at Griffin's Bend. And see, as I was talking about earlier, the flashing lights that you may see from some of these cars under braking comes from damage at the front of the car. If they have damage and are hard on the brakes, they may be getting some flickering as those lights come, or as they come into those hard braking zones, and those lights are showing their damage. Back in the mid-pack, it is very, very, very tense, very dense with cars. Saba in the GT2 looking to make a move on, or Mikey in the GT2 looking to make a move on Saba in the GT3. Very hard on the brakes down into the chase, as looked like Mikey may have gone slightly deep, but Saba was actually the car that ended up going deep. And Elizondo, still your leader at the end of lap 3, or at the beginning of lap 3 here. The end of lap 2. Elizondo and Bush broken away from the rest of the field. Darnell in the Nismo GTR, all on his lonesome, but he's got a pair of hard-charging GT2s of Drain and Harvey that are looking to close that gap. Darnell comfortable as he's got 3 GT2s between him and the next GT3. That next GT3 being Saba. Saba looking to make a move past Wagner. I think Wagner may have tried to go around the outside of Griffin's Bend. We will be continuing rain for the time being, but that rain will be slowing down, as these drivers, as they were earlier, flat out through Quarry Bend and Frog Hollow, they are now lifting through Quarry Bend and Frog Hollow to keep that car off of that inside wall. And car number 999, Taxi Dad, I believe with damage once again, or just slow through the cutting, may have come out on slicks and not changed the pit strategy. Very, very slow through Forest Elbow. I believe he may be on slicks. See, down into the braking zone. Car number 79 of Caligari now into the pits, dropping back to the back of the field. I believe with some damage in a lone incident that they themselves were the lone victim of. Mikey still with the fastest lap. Would not be surprised if that changes at the end of this lap. Now car number 24 of Cook, the leader of the back pack, as there has been a large split from, I believe, P13 and P14 overall. Elizondo and then Bush taking those fastest laps away from Mikey. Darnell still in P3 overall, P1 and GT3. Riding along in his lonesome, the battle for the lead still going on between Busch and Elizondo. Now Harvey and Mikey looking to do battle for the 3rd position, the final spot on the podium in GT2. And as they head up the hill into Griffin's Bend, Harvey, a little bit of the curb on the inside that will upset the car slightly. Mikey with the rain light on, just making sure that he makes it through. Car number 31, there's been an incident at the rear of the field between Wayne trying to get that car spun back around. We'll have to wait for some traffic. Car number 103 of Bird to go by. Bird unable to get onto slicks at the get onto wets at the very beginning of the race, had to change over to wets in the pit lane. Back on with your leaders as they have now come around. Car number 999 of Taxi Dad. Taxi Dad actually back into the pit lane. Maybe damage on that car once again. Hopping on with Harvey as I see cars going slowly through the S's. Just want to make sure that there has been no contact back there, and I don't think there has. I think the driver's just being cautious on their own. And then car number 24 of Cook, all on his lonesome in that Lamborghini, as the field has spread out. The pace of the drivers definitely showing just under 10 minutes into this race. And we are starting to see where these drivers are looking to stack up overall. Harvey and Mikey still in battle here, as Harvey getting a touch of the inside curb, leading to a touch of the outside curb. Mikey looking for a run as they come down the pit straight into Hell Corner. And I think Mikey going deep for a move on the inside of Harvey, side by side. Harvey gives him the space, Mikey takes it, and Mikey up into P3 in GT2. The battle is not over yet. Harvey is still just behind, but Harvey may not have the pace to keep up with Mikey, as Mikey once again taking the fastest lap. Mikey maybe, like Senna, a master of the wet conditions, as Mikey is greatly taking advantage of it. Mikey is one of the TRC admins, so he may have turned the rain on himself with the rain machine that he has control of. And the gap in the front seems to be maybe closing up a little bit, as Elizondo making a gap to Busch, as Mikey now around. And this is going to be one of the crucial events, as Drain now also goes around. We've got 2 GT2s around at Solman Park, and now they've got a chicane of cars as now Mikey backs up. Slokey now pulls through. Mikey and Kruger coming, or nearly coming together. Mikey rejoining the track, allowing Kruger and Mott to go through. Mikey was running very well in that Mercedes. Hopefully he doesn't have too much damage on that car as Mikey has gone around. Mikey was in P3. That should drop him back to P5 or P6 in class. Your leader, Elizondo, now pulling a gap to Busch, as Busch now, I was going to say maybe under attack from Darnell, but Darnell going deep at the chase. And now opening that gap back up to Busch. Elizondo retaking the fastest lap. And now it is going to be a battle of attrition. Car number 999 of Taxi Dad, drive-through penalty for speeding in pit lane. That's going to be a turnaround and bring it back in for Flatman. Unfortunate race tonight for Flatman. Just having some issues with that car tonight. Car number 91 of Alarcon ahead of Craters and Harrell. Alarcon and Craters, 2 GT3s battling for position here as they head down the Conrad straight into the chase. Craters will make it by. Harrell in the GT2 has the speed to make it by, but will have to back out and make that move later on, as both of these drivers very hard on the brakes into the cutting. It looks like Craters may have some damage on the front of that Audi. I see a little bit of damage on it. Doesn't seem to be affecting the car too much, but when it comes time to make our pits later on, it may be something that he thinks about is not taking the time to repair that damage and just running the car as is if the lap time would, or if the time to repair that car would be too detrimental. It is not worth the trade-off for the pace. Craters and Harrell, differing classes, but both in Audis now doing battle as they head up the hill towards Griffin's Bend. And I believe Alarcon behind, looking to make a move on Merkel. Poplinski looking to make a move on the inside of Ditto, backing out of that move, not close enough yet. Car number 999, a Taxi Dad, limping that car through still, just allowing traffic to go by. Now coming out of Forest Elbow, will be letting traffic through. Norman in the Lamborghini, the car number 12, in the pit lane. I believe that may have been an incident with that car. Harvey, now P3 in GT2 with Wagner giving chase. As the rain has stopped, we are now going to be on a drying track, as Good Gazelle now maybe displacing Rowan and Salty for the fan favorite, as Good Gazelle coming through the S's and the Dipper with Ditto in tow. Good Gazelle has made it past Ditto, now looking to work on Merkel going forward, very deep into Forest Elbow. That may put him under attack from Ditto as they head down the Conrad Straight. Ditto looking to pull to the inside. Poplinski just behind that Mercedes you saw have hard contact to the inside of, or to the outside of Forest Elbow. Ditto not close enough for that move on Good Gazelle as they come down the Conrad Straight into the chase. Good Gazelle 2 tires off in the dirt, but not able to get it slowed down enough, goes deep into the sand, just barely trying to keep it straight as he goes to re-enter the track. Will concede the position to Ditto, but is not too far behind. And I believe Poplinski may be pulling that car into the pit lane. No, will not. Good Gazelle still just losing one position, but making out very, very well as he rejoined the track at the exit of the chase. Very good driving on his part to keep it straight in the wet grass and sand. Elizondo still your overall leader, growing that gap to Busch, as we hear the 47 of Miller in that Porsche 935 just in the foreground as he is also off track. This is an odd looking lawnmower from Miller, as the spray is still there, but the wet conditions should be lessening as the rain should have stopped. And now comes running wets, but these wets are now going to be getting increasingly warmer as there will not be as much water to cool those tires. You may see those drivers pulling off into the wet part of the track to bring some temperature and cool those tires down. If those tires start getting too hot, maybe try to extend the life before they switch over to slicks, or maybe the track is not optimal for slicks yet, as now your leaders are starting to come across their first bit of lap traffic. Elizondo going around the Porsche 935 of Miller. Car number 19 of Merkel around at the bottom of the S's. Can't see him on the camera yet as he has now got that car righted and is heading down the hill. Damage on that car does not seem to be too crucial yet. Hopping on with the 24 of Cook, under attack from Craters and Harrell. This is a battle for position in the GT3 class, as Craters looking to move forward in that Audi, hard on the brakes into Hell Corner. looking to chase down on Cook as they head up the mountain straight. Cook getting a poor exit will allow Craters to pull alongside Harrell in the GT2. The faster car not close enough to thread the needle as Craters nearly clear of Cook as they head down to Griffin's Bend, as Craters has now cleared Cook and will be pulling away, now looking to chase down the 32 of Douglas, who is all on their own. I believe Douglas, this may be their first race with us in the Sunday series. I am not sure. You guys sharing on Good Gazelle in the chat, let me know if you would like a Good Gazelle on board, because I can get you one. Hopping on with Harvey, who is also going to be going past Miller here. Car number 212 and car numbers 103. I said 212 and 103, but it is not 212 and 103. Merkel now in the pits to repair that car. Car number 42 of Slokey, with some cars just behind. Mikey off into the grass once again at the chase. Now, as we are 20 minutes into this race, a third of the way through, we will see when the pit strategy from the drivers who will be pitting on strategy will be coming in. Ditto. Oh, sorry, that was car number 19, not car number 9. Good Gazelle now in the pits in the car number 4. Maybe taking the pit stop, or maybe pitting to repair damage. I am not sure with that car. Wagner in the GT2 now, the fastest lap of the race. Car number 79, that is Caligari, around at the S's, returning to pit lane. Elizondo, still your overall leader, now grown a 6-second gap to Busch, just behind. And there is no one in between that gap. Darnell now still closing in towards Busch. Harvey now maybe under attack from Wagner. This is once again going to be a battle for the final spot on the GT2 podium, as they head down the Conrad Straight. Harvey looking to break the toe, pulling to the outside to get the best run into the chase. Hard braking up the slight hill, missing that inside curb, carrying the speed nicely, trying to pull away from Wagner, but Wagner with that fastest lap showing that he has the pace. As they head down into Murray's Corner, Harvey growing the gap slightly. Harvey on a good lap. Wagner still there. Wagner close enough for the slipstream. And as Darnell and Busch are just ahead, they may be, the pair of them, Harvey and Wagner, closing up the gap to Busch ahead. As Busch just a second, actually I say Busch just a second behind Darnell. Darnell has made it past Busch. Darnell up to P2 overall. Busch slowing. I don't know if maybe he has a little bit of a different setup in that car, but Busch losing speed, losing pace to the cars behind, as Harvey and Wagner are definitely closing that gap. Contact between Wagner and Harvey at the exit of the cutting. Harvey into the wall. Now Wagner on his own. I don't know if maybe there was some contact, something that Harvey did on his own. But now Harvey stopped on track at the exit of the cutting. I don't know if maybe there's an issue with that car or what. Maybe it has stalled and he's trying to get it started back up, or too much damage as Harvey brings that car back into the pits. That takes Harvey out of the battle for the final spot on the podium in GT2. Good Gazelle now just coming out of the pits, as Alarcon and Ditto file in behind. I will get the onboard with Good Gazelle here in just a second. Field once again spreading out Darnell now ahead of Busch. We'll see if Darnell is maybe running a faster pace than the rest of the field. Wayne off the track on the left-hand side. I think it looked like Wayne nearly went around, but he did not. Busch now falling behind in pace as Wagner now just one corner behind, looking to move forward on Busch for that second spot on the podium. As Gazelle coming through Solomon Park now down in the Skyline. Craters backwards at Skyline, allowing the field to come through. That is a very unfortunate spot. Probably just got two tires on the curb as they came into Skyline. As let's get an onboard with Gut Gazelle here per request of the fans of Gut Gazelle here in the chat. Coming down the Conrad Straight. As Bird in the GT2 going past Gut Gazelle here as they head down to the chase. Just missing that curb on the inside. Coming through the penultimate corner as they head down the hill towards Murray Corner. And then hard on the brakes to get that car slowed down and then bring it around for the final corner of the track before we come across the start-finish line. Gut Gazelle now off the pace as he had to pit to repair damage, but the race is not over yet. Just over half of the race left to go. There's plenty of time for anything to happen. Car number 12 of Norman, once again with damage at the S's after Skyline. Returning that car back to the pits as we are on board with Gut Gazelle coming through Griffin's Bend as we head up the hill towards the cutting. Is downshifting second gear, coming around the inside of the apex, using that camber before you get onto the power once more as you come through Quarry Bend and Frog Hollow, and then down the hill towards Reed Park. And then finally through Reed Park into Solomon Park before you get to come down the hill into Skyline and the S's. Getting a touch of the curb on the inside. Now something you want to do in the wet here is those curbs are paint and there is no grip on paint. As we went on board with the lap with Gut Gazelle. Now, some drivers in the pit lane, Wagner in the pits. And I believe this is a strategy pit. This is on the books. As Wagner now off the jacks, rolling out of his pit box. And that is going to complete Wagner's pit. Wagner has completed his official pit stop. The only other driver to do so is Merkel. As Wagner with the fastest lap. Our first driver looking to get the undercut. As he has the pace with that fastest lap. The track is still wet. I don't know if maybe he came out on slicks or if he is banking on the track staying wet through the end of the race. There is a slight dry line developed on track, but it has not dried yet. The track still registering as wet. Car number 16 of Mikey once again into the pit lane. Damage on that car. And I believe Mott now in, or Mott in with damage as well. Wagner now looking to take advantage of this strategy call. Heading into the S's after Skyline. Mikey and Mott in the pits, and I don't think these are scheduled pits. I think these are pits for damage. Car number 79, Caligari, off the track around at the chase. Elizondo coming through the cutting with Darnell giving chase. Bush now behind, or Bush still behind the GTR of Darnell. Saba now the car behind, as Wagner had abandoned the battle to go into the pit lane and get that pit stop done. As Wagner looking to take advantage of this strategy call. He is still holding on to that fastest lap. But will the wet tires be the right tire at the end of this race? Elizondo now coming through, lapping the 913 GT3 Audi of Craters. Darnell at the exit of Forest Elbow, as Elizondo is about halfway down the Conrad Straight. Bush now just coming out of Forest Elbow, with Saba now coming into Forest Elbow. There is a sizable gap between these drivers, but that gap at this track is really only one mistake to close that gap or lose the position. Car number 913 off at the chase one more time. Did repair the damage on that car, as Harvey, now our next taker, into the pits. As Harvey looks to complete his scheduled pit stop, is there anyone else coming into the pits? Kruger just coming out of the pits, but not on a valid stop. I believe not changing tires. Harvey now coming into the pits. What will Harvey's strategy be here? As Harvey brings that car to a stop, turns it off on the jacks, as the crew will get to work on that car. Car numbers. I am looking for car number 79. Car number 12 and 79. I believe they are on different laps, but having a little scrap there together. Car numbers 99 and 7, Harrell and Wagner. This is technically not a battle, as Wagner is on a different strategy. Wagner just going to be cruising on his own. As we get the halfway call, we should start to see our scheduled pit stops coming in now. As Wagner now goes around. Maybe those tires weren't warm enough yet. Tried it around the outside. I think maybe drug the brakes a little bit too much. As Wagner rejoins the track, that will take some time out of the strategy that he was looking to employ. I don't think he really has any damage on that car, but he does have some mud on the front of that Maserati. As Elizondo, your leader, with Good Gazelle in tow, as we are starting to get more takers into the pit lane. Alarcon into the pit lane. I believe Ditto into the pit lane. Ditto and Alarcon both coming into the pit lane. Harvey completed his stop. Merkel, I believe, sitting out of the race for now, as we have more takers. Your leaders still out. Elizondo still out. Darnell still out. Bush still out. Saba now coming into the pit lane. The leading GT3 to come into the pit lane. Maybe looking for a strategy call and undercut on Darnell. Slokey not coming into the pits yet. Saba in the pits, Ditto in the pits, Alarcon in the pits. Between Ditto and Alarcon, it is a race out of pit lane for position. Ditto off the jacks, looking to get that car rolling. Alarcon off the jacks. They will stay the same. Alarcon will get an advantage. But Alarcon gets a drive-through penalty for speeding into pit lane. Hopefully the same doesn't happen to Ditto. But Ditto not clearing the stop, I believe, maybe not changing tires. Now going to have to go back into pit lane, so essentially getting another drive-through for Ditto, as I think they may have to change tires. You say he's in P18 now in regards to Gut Gazelle, but he will be getting a couple spots more, and he's technically not P18, as he is racing in the GT3 class. And the cars that have that gray triangle on the bottom, he is technically in... He's technically in P10 in class, I believe, either P9 or P10 in class, as Wagner around once more, still with the fastest lap, but that strategy has been completely thrown out the door, as he is still the leading GT3 or GT2 out of the pits, or having the pit stop completed. But now, with damage on the front of that car, the race is now falling out of Wagner's grasp. Wagner was on a great strategy call, but all of the advantage that he would have had with the undercut has pretty much been thrown away. Still waiting on our podiums to pit. Saba, the final spot on the GT3 podium, having pit. Harvey, the GT2, having pit, waiting on a couple cars ahead, but I believe Harvey is laps down. Elizondo coming through Frog Hollow and then into Reed Park. Still waiting on Elizondo, Darnell, Bush, Slokey, Drain, all to pit. Douglas as well. Douglas with a good finish, not having too much drama from him. Just running their own race and looking to have a good result from it right now. Currently P4 in class, as we may see the pit stop here any second now, as I believe I saw the blinker on Douglas, as Douglas now pulls into the pit lane. Just needs to bring it down to the pit lane speed to not get a drive-through penalty for speeding in pit lane. And now Douglas will complete their stop. If you guys in the chat who are cheering on Gut Gazelle, if you wouldn't mind letting me know what is the nationality, what is the nation of origin for you guys. I see Alpine noticed, or I see Alpine said in the chat. Elizondo, your overall leader, now into the pit lane to have his stop completed. Darnell also taking the fastest lap of the race away from Wagner. Now, Darnell going to be your overall leader for now, still needing to pit, but looking to increase that gap. Could be a very severe strategy call. Does have a lap on Saba and Slokey, I believe. As Slokey comes out of Murray Corner. No, there is not a lap on Slokey. But Darnell, now your overall leader. But Darnell looking like he maybe made contact with the inside wall, the exit of Quarry Bend. Coming down through Reed Park, just going to take it a little bit nicer, a little bit easier, staying off of those curbs. I say that as he gets onto both curbs, and Darnell is around, your overall leader, hard into the wall at the top of Skyline. That is definitely going to be damaged, and he will probably not going to have an option to pit on this lap. I don't know how much damage is on that car, as he is sliding down through the S's. Hard contact, and this is extremely unfortunate for your overall leader. He is still trying to limp that car back home, but that car is not going to be driving very well, and it is going to be a very long pit stop for him. Too much of the curve at the exit of Solomon Park, and now that car is going to be a handful to limp back home to the pits. It's going to be a long stop for Darnell, and it could be the race win. It could be the podium on the line here. We'll just need to bring the car in one piece back to the pit lane. Not push too hard. Very, very crucial to just get this car to the pit as fast as possible, as we should see Darnell pull off to the left-hand side. Will not pull off. I thought maybe the damage on that car is severe, but not having to pull in yet. We'll see if Darnell still has the pace. Busch now coming through the chase. That was very, very hard hit for Darnell to not have race-altering or race-ending damage, but he may have gotten extremely lucky there to still have a drivable car after that and not have meatball flags. And still have lights, too. It was a hard hit to the front. Busch, your current overall GT2, or your current GT2 leader, not overall winner, now into the pit lane to take his stop. Elizondo now just at the exit of Forest Elbow. Will this be the move for the GT2 lead, as Busch just waiting for that stop to be completed, as he is now on the jacks, waiting for those tires to be changed, waiting to get whatever stop he is doing done. As Elizondo now coming out of the chase. Will Busch be rolling in time? I don't think so. Elizondo will resume the GT2 lead coming out, or coming into Murray Corner. Is Busch rolling it? No, not yet. Busch now down into P2. Busch is rolling now, but will come out a few seconds behind that of Elizondo, as we are on board with Elizondo looking back, waiting. Still don't see Busch coming out of the pit lane. It may be at the very last moment. But as Busch is scored ahead of Elizondo, Busch is behind Elizondo. And as it stands, Elizondo on strategy, currently your GT2 and will be your overall leader, as Slokey and Darnell, both GT3s, still needing to take their pit stops. Out of Spain, we got Spain in the house tonight. Well, very happy to have you guys with us. Happy to have you with TRC. As Darnell looking to make his way past some lap traffic down into Hell Corner. Looking to get past Merkel and Cook. Heading up the mountain straight. He's got a lot of slipstream to use, as he can leapfrog from one car to another in terms of slipstream. Elizondo now behind some lap traffic, looking to make his way past Ditto here. The blue flag's flying. Shouldn't be too much of an issue for Elizondo as they head down the Conrad straight. Flashing lights from Elizondo saying, hey, I'm the leader, get out of the way. As Elizondo will be using that extra power that GT2 has, but may not be enough, as Ditto pulls to the inside, or pulls to the outside, allows Ditto through the inside, hard braking down into the chase from Elizondo, and as he gets rescored, will be ahead of Busch and ahead of Saba. Saba at the very end of this field that Elizondo just came through, and I believe Saba on merit may be the GT3 leader after Slokey and Darnell take their pit stops. Over 2/3 of the way through this race, and the wet tires are showing to be the tire to be on for now. There's still a bit of water on the track. The track is still registered as wet, not registered as damp or dry. And I think we'll stay wet. Still see spray coming off the back of those cars. Bird 2 tires off in the grass behind Norman and Saba. As Saba now looking to make his way through this lap traffic here. Wagner, one of the fighting GT2s looking for the lead earlier on. Just some unfortunate stroke of luck for him has taken him out of that battle, and he has now fallen outside of the podium positions in GT2. Hopping back on with Darnell as car number with a 9 is car number 19 of Merkel off at the chase, once again coming into the pit lane to repair that car. Darnell, now your overall leader, coming into the pit lane to get this pit stop out of the way very late in the race, and a lot of damage on that car. It has seen better days for sure. How long will this stop be? I know that he's got that electrical damage. He's got the front spot on, or front box in the pit. Slokey also coming into the pit lane. Where is Saba? Saba just coming down the Conrad straight. It will not be enough time for Darnell and Slokey to get out ahead of Saba, and I believe Saba will have pulled off the undercut. Douglas, now I don't think will be in a position to get back past Darnell and Slokey, as he is about a lap behind Saba right now in GT3. Darnell, you had 2 tires on the curb at Solman Park. You went into the wall. You may have killed someone after, but you went 2 tires on the curb in the wet, which you can't do. Slokey, now coming out of the pit lane, will pass Darnell for track position and overall position. Slokey, currently, as it's timed, your overall leader. But Elizondo, actually Slokey ahead of Elizondo. Saba should be your overall leader now. We'll have to wait and see how everything ends up being scored. Actually, Elizondo, your overall leader. Saba in P2, P1 in GT3. Bush in P2 in GT2. Darnell, or Slokey in P2 in GT3. Darnell currently in P3 in GT3, but will it be enough to hold on to the podium, or will Douglas find his way onto the GT3 podium? And I believe what may be his first race here in the TRC Sunday Multiclass Series. Elizondo, your overall leader with a large gap, 9 seconds to the Lamborghini of Saba behind. Does Saba have the pace to close that gap up? As Douglas coming into the chase now, just needs to keep it clean, a little bit deep, but backs off of the throttle. Good driving from Douglas to keep that car in one piece. Coming down to Murray Corner, Darnell has exited the pit lane. Douglas will not have enough time to close that gap to Darnell, as Douglas allows Mott to go by. Mott, a car off of the strategy overall, as Douglas loses the car, slides it at Hell Corner, but somehow keeps it from going around, keeps it from making any contact with the wall, and Douglas keeps that car in one piece, currently sitting P4 in class, as Darnell manages to stay on the podium, but still has to bring that car home, now just behind Gut Gazelle. Looking to pass Gut Gazelle as they come into Skyline, the pair of them. Darnell in P3 in GT3. As I'm not sure if maybe Gut Gazelle contact with the wall. Gut Gazelle did make contact with the wall coming through the S's down into the dipper. And then Forest Elbow, does not seem to be too much damage on that car, but hard. Very hard on the brakes and straight on at the exit of Forest Elbow. Hard contact for Gut Gazelle, and Gut Gazelle will have to take that car back to the pits. I believe that will be a meatball flag, I think. Hard contact for Gut Gazelle, sliding that car down into Forest Elbow. Norman just coming out of the pit lane, sliding those rear tires. Cook just coming into the pit lane to serve their pit stop. Ditto still needing to serve a pit stop, and Mott also still needing to. Craters, Gutgazelle, Kruger, Wayne still needing to serve a pit stop as well. Gutgazelle should be bringing that car into the pit lane here, and they are, as they bring that car down to pit speed. Hard contact for Gutgazelle was running a decent race, and I don't know if maybe the brakes locked up or just tried to overturn the front tires, but that car went straight on at Forest Elbow. Hard contact into the wall. Harvey parked on the inside of Griffin's Bend. Maybe more damage on that car, allowing the field to cycle through, and Harvey may be sending that car back to the garage. Maybe having an issue getting that car started back up. Elizondo, still your overall leader. Saba now taking a second out of that gap, as just 8 seconds to Elizondo, as we see Elizondo coming into the foreground. Douglas, the P4 GT3, being lapped by Saba now, as car number 12 of Norman with an incident at Skyline. Darnell on the podium in GT3, now coming behind Jack Craters as they come out of Forest Elbow. A Ferrari just behind making contact with the wall. Wagner now into the pits, Bird into the pits. Gutgazelle coming out of the pits, having served their pit stop and getting that pit stop cleared. Just needs to bring that car home. Currently P18 overall, and I believe should be P10 or P9 in class. I'm not 100% sure. Saba now down through the S's, looking to close that gap. The gap is closing on Elizondo, but does he have enough time? Can Saba get the overall win away from Elizondo? It will have to be a perfect run from both to keep the other from doing what they desire in terms of winning the overall position. It's a battle between GT3 and GT2. Saba about half of the, or I'd say a third of the distance of the Conrad straight behind Elizondo. And that gap closing once more. Now a second taken out of that. Elizondo still trying to hold on to that overall lead, but Saba with a lot of pace looking to take that position away. Cook off at the chase. We've got more cars in the pit. Wagner, Bird still in the pit. Craters now in the pit to serve their pit stop. Wayne also in the pit to serve their pit stop. Elizondo still your overall leader. Saba now just 6 seconds, the gap between Elizondo and Saba. Bush still P2 just behind Saba. Douglas, the P4 GT3 car, in 7th overall. Ditto also serving their pit stop or parking that car for now. Wayne pulling out of the pit lane, as Elizondo heading into the cutting now with some traffic ahead. A group of cars here with Darnell, as Darnell is coming around Drain, it looks like. Up ahead, Alarcon in a group with Mikey and Gutgazelle. Gutgazelle cutting through the chase. Once again doing a good job to keep that car pointed straight, and another car of the 19 of Merkel also around at the chase, looking to also get a little bit of landscaping in, feeling that the grass needed to be cut a little bit. Car number 15 of Elizondo just snaking his way through the S's into the dipper before they turn back around for Forest Elbow to head down the hill. Saba inching ever so much closer now. No cars between Elizondo and Saba. Just 8 minutes left, right around 4 or 5 laps left of this race. Does Saba have enough time to close that gap? It's got to be perfect, and he needs cooperation from traffic, maybe a little bit of traffic to hinder the pace of Elizondo. The gap now less than 5 seconds. Saba putting on a masterclass in terms of pace, just holding on to the tail end of Elizondo. That gap shrinking, shrinking, shrinking as we watch Elizondo come through Murray Corner. Saba just in the background. As they come across the line, we'll see how the time updates. Saba getting a very solid exit of Murray Corner, now just 4 seconds. The gap dropping very, very quickly. We may have a battle for the overall lead on our hands here very shortly. And I think those drivers now having to fight for that wet part of the track to keep those tire temperatures down. Car number 9 of Ditto coming out of the pit lane, but I don't think he has cleared his pit stop. And has not cleared the pit stop. Ditto will be dropping in positions after going invalid if he does not bring that car back into the pits and get that pit stop validated. Gutgazelle also back into the pits, I believe, with more damage. Unfortunate for Gutgazelle in his first race with us tonight. Elizondo still your overall leader. The gap to Saba just over 3 seconds now. The gap dropping, 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 but Saba pushing that car to its limits in the wet. Trying his best to close that gap. 6 minutes now as the timing boards update. I will let you know what the gap is when we get closer to it. The gap still, according to the timing boards, 3.3 seconds as Saba looking to take the overall win away from Elizondo. Elizondo been a dominant car for the majority of the race, but Saba showing some late race pace. Will Saba have enough? The gap now another second taken out of it. The Lamborghini shows to be a monster through the mountain section as that gap is dropping, dropping, dropping. It will be a stellar defense from Elizondo to hold on to this lead should he choose to defend it for the overall position. It does not matter in terms of class position, but it would be the overall position. Busch in P2. Still in this battle for the lead, because if Saba and Elizondo have a coming together any time ahead of Busch on this lap, Busch would be the one to pick up the pieces. Slokey now past Darnell. Slokey into P2 and Darnell in P3, the final spot on the podium. As Darnell looking to make his way past Caligari, some lap traffic. The gap still dropping. Saba inching ever so much closer as this race inches closer to its end. 24 laps complete and about 2 or 3 more to go. Saba, 2.3 seconds the gap now, waiting for the timing boards to update, as Saba pushing a lot more speed than we have seen the drivers pushing through the exit of Quarry Bend. Looking like it was nearly a dry lap from Saba there, as I think this is a good time to go on board one more time with Saba. If I can get us on board with Saba. As we will be riding with Saba as he is trying to chase down the leader of Elizondo. Just 4 minutes left in this race, a couple laps left to go. The gap now 1.7, another 3/4 of a second taken out of this gap. Saba, your GT3 leader, trying to chase down your GT2 leader. This is for the overall win of the race. Hard braking down into the chase, trying to close up as much of that gap under braking as you can, then using the brakes to rotate the car through the corner of the chase. Now through the penultimate corner, a slight right-hander, then hard braking down into Murray Corner. Once again, watching that delta, looking for it to drop. The Lamborghini very solid through Murray Corner. And that gap ahead as Saba 0.7 of a second, 3/4 of a second faster than Elizondo on that previous lap. The gap has stayed the same though. that gap actually growing slightly as that GT2 puts down that higher horsepower than the GT3 as they head up the mountain straight into Griffin's Bend. Now, this is where the Lamborghini shines as they get into the mountain section, that higher aerodynamic, the more aerodynamic Lamborghini GT3 now going to be putting in work on the less aerodynamic Maserati MC20 GT2 as they head through Quarry Bend and Frog Hollow as they head down towards Reed Park and then eventually Solman Park. The gap now down to right at a second. The closer that Saba gets to Elizondo here, the closer he gets to slipstream range. Down on the brakes, out of Skyline, down to the S's, now closing up quite a lot. Now inside that slipstream range, right at 3/4 of a second. Will Saba be getting the toe down into the Conrad straight as they come out of Forest Elbow? The GT2 will try to do everything it can to pull away from Saba. Saba will get a little bit of the slipstream here as we are going to be coming to the final lap. The final lap of this race. 3/4 of a second, Saba barely holding on to that slipstream, but the GT2 with that extra horsepower will break it. It's going to have to be a monstrous move from Saba right here at the very end of the race to get this overall lead away from Elizondo. As they come to the final lap of the race, it will be the white flag here as they come across the line. Hard braking from Saba once again as Elizondo goes slightly deep. Elizondo also not getting as good of an exit that time, but the gap still shrinking. Elizondo deep at Murray, or at a Hill Corner, and that will grant Saba the lead as he is now pulling away from Elizondo. And I don't think Elizondo is going to have the pace to get that lead back. As we head back into the overall view, the final lap of the race, and Saba on the last lap, albeit the first corner of the last lap, has gotten the lead away from Elizondo, but very wide at the cutting. Maybe he has overdriven the tires on that car. Saba has got the job done, but he has to hold on to it, pushing a lot of speed through Frog Hollow before they head down the hill towards Reed Park. And the clock will come to zero very shortly. Saba now down into Skyline as we are now on the last lap of the race. Through the S's and then eventually into the Dipper. Elizondo trying to hold on to what is left of the gap between Elizondo and Saba, but Saba has all but run away with it here. Bird with hard contact to the outside wall at the exit of Forest Elbow. And Saba just 3 more corners to go, or 4 more corners to kink into the chase. Then the chase itself, and then the slight right-hander after the chase. 2 corners left for Saba. Did not lead a lap until the very end of the race, but Saba will be your winner here in the Sunday GT3 GT2 multi-class. The GT3s are on top this time as Saba takes home the win in the Lamborghini. Elizondo still takes home the win in the GT2 class. Bush now coming across the line for P2 in GT2. Slokey will come across in the Ferrari for P2 in GT3. And then Darnell now will be the next car across the line. Car number 913 of Craters will be coming across the line next to finish his race, as well as car number 24 of Cook, and then car number 3 of Drain. After that comes car 212 of Poplinski, and then car number 32 of Douglas, bringing home P4 in class for GT3. Very respectable finish for him. Mott next across the line. in GT3, bringing home I want to say P6 in class. Car number 16 next across the line. That is Mikey bringing home P4 in GT3. And then Good Gazelle getting a move on Wayne. I don't believe it was for position, but Good Gazelle next across the line in the Aston Martin with Wayne in the Ferrari just behind. And then Darnell in the Nismo GT3R with Harrell next across the line. And then the next car to come across will be Kruger in GT2. The 99 of Wagner now coming into Murray Corner. And then the 9 of Ditto, which Ditto will be getting a penalty placed onto his finishing position for not finishing, or for not validating the pit stop, the mandatory pit stop. Car number 91 of Alarcon bringing home P5 in GT3. And then car number 79 of Caligari bringing that Audi GT3 home. And then Merkel, the final car across the line, bringing home that Porsche 992 GT3R across the line. And that will bring an end to the festivities tonight, as I have accidentally opened the replay. As they finished in the race tonight, as I hear some donuts going on, Elizondo, P1 in GT2, Bush P2, Harrell P3. That is your GT2 podium. In GT3, Saba, your overall winner, with Slokey in P2 and Darnell in P3 with the fastest lap. Thank you all for joining. Thank you to the fans of Good Gazelle for participating in the chat. Thank you for the fans of, or thank you for Douglas for participating in your first Sunday race with us tonight, I believe. I may be wrong, but that's okay. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a good night. If you guys enjoy Good Gazelle so much, you should try to get him into the Wednesday racing series. That is the GT2, GT4 KTM series. It is a great series. If you would like to see more Good Gazelle, make sure that you get him to race in that series if possible. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys on YouTube for tuning in. Have a great night, and I will see you all on Wednesday for round 4 of the KTM Cannonball Series.